So, if I told you that a country fighting for its very survival, like a nation actively rationing ammunition and, constantly pleading with the international community for defense systems, was simultaneously exporting advanced military tech to the Middle East to protect U.S. bases.
Right. It sounds totally made up.
Exactly. You'd probably think I had the story completely backward. I mean, it sounds like a geopolitical typo.
Yeah, it defies literally all conventional logic of how a nation at war is supposed to behave.
Mm.
You'd expect a besieged country to hoard every single asset it produces.
Okay, let's untack this because that counterintuitive role reversal is exactly what we are exploring today. You are joining us for a deep dive into a massive geopolitical pivot that is uh, quietly reshaping global security.
It really is.
Yeah, and the core of it is that Ukraine is transforming from a nation purely defending its own borders into the world's most vital consultant and exporter of anti-drone warfare. And by sending this technology straight to the Gulf, they are triggering some unprecedented severe threats from Iran.
Which is wild.
Huh.
And to map out how we actually got here, we're relying on a really detailed geopolitical intelligence brief published on the KULT Patreon page.
Yeah, KULT.
Right. And this document traces the ripple effects of Ukraine's technological evolution and, well, the whole diplomatic storm it has created. But just to be completely clear with you as we dive into this, because we are looking at a powder keg of intersecting interest involving Ukraine, Russia, Iran, Israel, and the United States, our goal today isn't to pick a side.
Absolutely not.
We are not here to endorse any nation's foreign policy or validate one political stance over another. We are strictly here to impartially map out the chessboard based on the facts and claims in this intelligence brief, so you can see exactly how and why these pieces are moving.
Right, we are just looking at the board, observing the mechanics of the game. And looking at the board, the very first thing that trips me up is just the sheer logistics of it all.
Oh, for sure.
Like, how does a country that is actively fighting a massive land invasion every single day even have the bandwidth to export defense technology, let alone send their own personnel overseas? You would think the domestic front would absorb 100% of their focus.
What's fascinating here is that the intense, relentless pressure of the invasion is the very crucible that forged this technology.
Huh.
Yeah, necessity isn't just the mother of invention. In this case, it is the accelerator. I mean, Ukraine has endured 4 years of daily hard-won experience. Every single night, they are combating Iranian-designed drones, specifically the Shahed-type loitering munitions launched by Russia.
Right, and you hear the term drone warfare, and you probably picture, like, a sleek, multi-million-dollar Predator drone controlled via satellite from a bunker in Nevada or something.
Exactly, which is not this at all.
No, not at all. These Shaheds are often described as sounding like flying mopeds. They are relatively slow, incredibly loud, and they are launched in massive swarms designed to simply overwhelm and deplete a city's air defenses.
And that swarm tactic is the critical challenge here. Because if you fire a $2 million Patriot missile to shoot down a $20,000 Shahed drone,
You lose the math.
exactly, you might win the engagement, but you lose the economic war. The attacker will simply bleed your treasury dry. And 4 years of being subjected to that specific grueling mathematical disadvantage forced Ukraine into a very rapid, highly practical kind of innovation.
It makes me think of how the human immune system adapts.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, like when a brand new aggressive virus enters the bloodstream, the body initially takes a massive beating. It's chaotic, but over time, the system studies that specific invader.
Mm.
It iterates, and eventually it produces highly specialized antibodies to neutralize that exact threat.
Right, it adapts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Ukraine's defense network hasn't just built one single magic weapon. The source material outlines this incredibly intricate layered system they've developed to act as those antibodies.
Because relying on a single point of failure against a swarm is basically a death sentence. The Ukrainian layered approach integrates multiple distinct mechanisms of defense. The first layer often involves intense electronic jamming.
So not even shooting at them yet.
Right. You aren't physically shooting the drone down. You are scrambling its GPS and navigation system so it just flies harmlessly into an empty field.
Wow.
And if the drone pushes through that, it meets the second layer, which is traditional kinetic anti-aircraft guns and mobile fibers.
Okay, the more conventional stuff.
Yeah. Then you have fighter jets.
Mm-hmm.
But the crucial innovation, like the missing link they developed, is their own fleet of low-cost interceptor drones. By layering all these systems, Ukrainian forces are consistently downing more than 80% of incoming Russian drones.
80% against swarms specifically engineered to overwhelm radar. That's just wild. And the detail that really anchored this for me, the absolute standout element from the brief, is the specific interceptor drone they call the Octopus.
Oh yeah, the Octopus.
Yeah.
It is the piece of technology that completely flips the economic script.
Because the Octopus interceptor costs around $3,000.
Which is insane.
Right. For context, $3,000 in military procurement is basically a rounding error. It is nothing. But what I want to understand is how a plastic drone that cheap actually stops a weaponized Shaheed. It's not carrying, like, heavy, sophisticated radar-guided missiles.
No, not at all. At that price point, you strip away all the bloated, expensive subsystems. The Octopus works kinetically.
Wait, kinetically?
Yeah. It relies on the broader layered network's radar to guide it close to the target, and then it essentially acts as a flying battering ram.
You're kidding.
I'm serious. The pilot maneuvers the $3,000 interceptor directly into the propellers or the fuselage of the Shaheed midair. It just sacrifices itself to bring down the larger, more dangerous weapon.
A $3,000 kamikaze defense. I mean, that fundamentally alters the sustainability of the war. Instead of the attacker bleeding the defender dry, the defender is neutralizing the threat for a fraction of the cost of the attack itself.
And the broader implications of that shift are exactly why the rest of the world is suddenly paying very close attention. It is one thing to invent a cheap drone in a lab.
Sure.
But it is entirely another to have a system that is battle-tested against thousands of live targets. The intelligence brief features a quote that captures this perfectly. Igor Fedorko, the executive director of the Ukrainian Defense Industry Council, states point blank, "No one in the world has the experience and knowledge that we have."
It is a massive claim, but I guess the raw data of an 80% interception rate kind of backs it up.
It really does, because we look at the reality of asymmetric warfare, which is simply a conflict where a smaller, outgunned force has to figure out how to survive against a larger, traditional military theoretical knowledge, becomes useless very quickly.
Right. You need stuff that actually works in the mud.
Exactly. Proven experience. The live data gathered from thousands of real-world interceptions becomes the most valuable commodity on the planet. Ukraine isn't just selling a $3,000 piece of plastic and circuitry. They are exporting the institutional knowledge of how to integrate it into that complex layered system.
It's like they've open sourced their survival.
That's a great way to look at it.
They aren't just shipping a box of drones, they are exporting the software updates for a war that the rest of the world hasn't fully fought yet. And, if you have an 80% success rate against the most prevalent attack drones on the market, you are going to get phone calls. Which pulls us directly into the diplomatic web this has created. Because the countries knocking on Kyiv's door aren't just in Europe.
No, the scale of the international demand detailed in the brief is staggering. President Volodymyr Zelensky revealed that Kyiv has received 11 formal requests for these specific drone countermeasures.
11 requests.
Yeah, and while some are from European states and the U.S., the most notable requests are actually coming from countries neighboring Iran.
The country is sitting directly in the geographic shadow of where these Shaheed drones are designed and manufactured.
Precisely. And Ukraine is moving past the review phase. Here, they are actively putting boots on the ground. The brief highlights the first confirmed deployment of this tech to Jordan.
Wow.
According to Zelensky's statements to the New York Times in early March, Ukrainian specialists and their interceptor drones were sent to Jordan for a highly specific mission to help protect U.S. military bases.
Okay, let me stop you there, because the visual of Ukrainian teams deploying to the Middle East to protect American bases is jarring. Like, Washington officially requested this.
The request came straight from Washington. Zelensky noted their immediate reaction was, I said, yes, of course we will send our experts. And that footprint is rapidly expanding. France 24 reported that additional Ukrainian teams have already been dispatched to Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Saudi Arabia.
Wow, so it's all over the Gulf.
Yeah, and beyond that, active talks are underway with the leadership in Bahrain and Kuwait.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because I want to challenge the timeline of this partnership with the United States. You just laid out Washington requesting immediate, urgent help for their bases in Jordan.
Right.
But the intelligence brief points out that a major overarching drone production agreement between the U.S. and Ukraine is currently stalled, pending White House approval. In fact, Zelensky presented this comprehensive concept directly to President Trump during a meeting at the White House back in August 2025.
The reporting from Axios, via the Ukrainian outlet Militarny, confirms that exact timeline. The proposal in August 2025 wasn't just for a shipment of a few interceptors, it was a pitch for a massive, integrated drone production partnership.
So help me understand the logic here. If you have a proven integrated network specifically designed to counter massive swarms of these exact loitering munitions, why would an administration pause on something that could protect their own forward-deployed bases?
A fair question.
Why shelve a comprehensive defense plan in August 2025 only to urgently ask for those same experts to fly to Jordan months later?
It highlights the intense friction between political maneuvering and the sheer speed of modern asymmetric warfare. We don't have access to the internal White House deliberations that led to the initial shelving of the agreement. However, the source material focuses heavily on the fallout of that decision.
Okay.
It explicitly notes that some U.S. officials now view that August 2025 delay as a, quote, costly mistake.
A costly mistake. Because while the paperwork sat on a desk in Washington, the threat matrix in the Middle East just continued to evolve. I mean, the drones didn't stop flying just because the production agreement was paused.
Exactly. And the cost of that delay was measured in lives. The text points out that the realization of this costly mistake was driven by the fact that Iranian drones have since killed U.S. service members in the region.
That's tragic.
It is. The reality on the ground shifted violently, forcing a pivot from a paused, long-term production partnership to an urgent, localized request for Ukrainian experts in Jordan. And as Zelensky mentioned in mid-March, they still haven't signed that broader document.
It is a stark reminder of how bureaucratic timelines can completely collapse when they collide with battlefield realities.
Absolutely.
But zooming out, deploying this defensive technology into the Gulf is an earthquake for regional politics. Sending Ukrainian experts to Jordan, Qatar, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia. I mean, Ukraine is essentially inserting itself into the backyards of nations that historically try to balance relations between Washington, Moscow, and Tehran. By doing so, Ukraine has crossed a massive geopolitical red line for the Iranian government.
Which triggers the severe blowback and the escalating war of words between Kiev and Tehran. Think about it. You are taking a nation that utilizes these attack drones as a primary tool of regional influence and intimidation.
Right.
And suddenly, the exact specialists who have spent 4 years dissecting and defeating those drones are setting up shop right across the border. The Iranian reaction was immediate and furious.
You can imagine the panic in Tehran. Their primary asymmetric weapon is suddenly facing a proven, low-cost countermeasure deployed by all their neighbors.
Yeah, and Ibrahim Azizi, the head of the Iranian parliament's National Security Committee, bypassed traditional diplomatic channels entirely. He took to X, formerly Twitter, on March 13th to issue a very public, direct threat.
What did he say?
Azizi claimed that by providing this drone support to Gulf states, Ukraine, quote, has effectively engaged in war.
Engaged in war. When a head of national security uses that phrase, they're laying the groundwork for a physical response.
And Azizi went further than just rhetoric. He attempted to build a legal framework for potential Iranian military action. He stated that Ukraine's actions make its entire territory a legitimate target for Iran, specifically invoking Article 51 of the UN Charter.
Wait, Article 51 is the right to self-defense, correct?
It is.
So Iran is trying to argue that Ukraine exporting a purely defensive technology to a third-party country somehow constitutes an armed attack on Iran.
That is the rhetorical gymnastics they are performing. Article 51 affirms the inherent right of individual or collective self-defense if an armed attack occurs against a member of the United Nations. By invoking it, Azizi is trying to frame the deployment of defensive interceptors in the Gulf as an aggressive, offensive act against Iranian sovereignty.
Wow.
Thereby justifying an attack on Ukrainian soil. Now, to maintain our strict adherence to the source material and our impartiality, we must note the other half of Azizi's statement. He also accused Ukraine of supplying drones directly to Israel.
Did the intelligence brief provide any verification for that specific claim?
It explicitly notes that Azizi provided zero evidence to support the claim that Ukraine has supplied drones to Israel. But regardless of the veracity of that specific accusation, publicly declaring the entirety of Ukraine a legitimate target represents a severe, dangerous escalation.
So what does this all mean for the leadership in Kyiv? How do you maneuver when a major regional power invokes the UN Charter to threaten your entire country, a country that is already fully consumed by an invasion from a different direction? It's a tightrope.
Yeah, and the way President Zelensky responded is a masterclass in asymmetric diplomacy. He didn't issue, like, a defensive press release.
Yeah.
The very next day, March 14th, Zelensky is photographed in Paris holding a sit-down meeting with Reza Pahlavi.
The exiled crown prince and son of Iran's last Shah.
Right, the exiled royalty of the exact nation that just threatened to bomb his country. And Zelensky releases a statement alongside the meeting saying that Ukraine, quote, truly wants to see a free Iran that does not cooperate with Russia or destabilize the Middle East.
Quite the statement.
I have to ask you to read between the lines here. Is a meeting like this just a symbolic photo op designed to troll Tehran? Or is Ukraine actively attempting to legitimize the Iranian opposition and apply external pressure on the regime?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it serves multiple strategic purposes simultaneously. First, it is a highly visible signal to Tehran that Kyiv will not be intimidated by the invocation of Article 51.
But more importantly, it represents the total globalization of a conflict that originally started over borders in Eastern Europe. What began as a desperate, localized need to defend Ukrainian airspace has mutated into direct diplomatic and strategic posturing between Ukraine and Iran.
It's all connected now.
Exactly. By meeting with Reza Pahlavi, Zelensky is actively engaging with elements that seek to overthrow the current Iranian government. It is an incredibly bold chess move that intertwines the fates of Eastern Europe and the Middle East.
It is absolutely wild when you trace the thread all the way back to its origin. A localized necessity like the desperate scramble to build a $3,000 piece of plastic wire and a kinetic battering ram to stop a drone from hitting a power plant has literally resulted in UN charter threats, the deployment of specialists to American bases in the Gulf, and high-level meetings with exiled royalty in Paris.
It perfectly illustrates how interconnected modern warfare is. A technological breakthrough born out of desperation in one theater of war immediately cascades. It just completely alters the balance of power and the diplomatic alliances in an entirely different hemisphere.
Which perfectly frames our core takeaways for you today as we wrap up this deep dive. We've tracked an incredible complex journey from the besieged skies of Ukraine to the U.S. bases in Jordan, culminating in the severe threats from Tehran. You are constantly bombarded with news about massive defense budgets, carrier strike groups, and troop movements.
Right, the conventional stuff.
Yeah, but the underlying truth exposed by this intelligence brief is that modern geopolitical influence isn't solely dictated by who has the biggest standing army or the most expensive, sophisticated missiles.
Not anymore. Influence is increasingly commanded by those who possess the most recent, practical, and proven experience in asymmetric warfare. Ukraine is proving, in real time, that hard-won operational data and localized innovation can instantly become the most sought-after diplomatic currency on the global stage.
A $3,000 kamikaze drone and the software network that guides it can literally rewrite the rules of regional security in the Middle East.
Which leaves us with a critical, somewhat unsettling concept to consider. This raises an important question for all of us as we watch these specific technologies evolve. We've established that a unified, integrated network of $3,000 Ukrainian interceptors can effectively neutralize swarms of drones.
Right, essentially making physical defense drastically cheaper than physical offense.
Exactly. But if the physical sky is suddenly locked down by cheap automated kinetic interceptors, what happens to the nature of the attack?
Oh.
Does this permanent shift in the economic math push future conflicts entirely out of the physical realm? If an aggressor knows they can't penetrate a $3,000 drone shield with hardware, does the next war bypass the sky completely, moving entirely into cyber warfare, where the only goal is to hack and paralyze these automated defense grids before a single physical shot is fired?
Man, that is a brilliant, terrifying thought to leave on. If the physical immune system becomes impenetrable, the virus doesn't just give up, it mutates to attack the nervous system instead.
Exactly.
The battlefield just moves to the code. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive and exploring these shifting global dynamics with us. Keep questioning the evolving world around you, and we'll see you next time.